Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says green tax. When it comes to the automobile industry, there are vehicles which are changed every 5 to 10 years. New innovations are brought about. Why? There are two possible reasons to it. One is to incorporate new safety standards, improvise on the technology front so that the safety of the consumer who's procuring that particular product is taken into picture. Another aspect of technological innovation and improvements in the automobile sector is also keeping in mind the pollution emissions as well. How? Let's say, for example, when you look at the older vehicles, they do not have the safety technology, they do not have the provision of airbags, or they do not have the advanced level of braking system. All this have been improvised in the new systems. Same is with respect to the engines as well as the emission standards. The older vehicles did not have much emission technologies, but of late, the engines that are being supplied in the automobile industry are way much advanced, and the amount of carbon emissions have comparatively reduced as well. In order to disincentivize the use of polluting vehicles and to curb pollution in the country, the center now intends to notify a system of imposing what is called as green tax on the older vehicles. Why? That is because the more the older vehicles, that which is present in the system, it will release what is called as the harmful gases, and these harmful gases will ultimately impact the consumers. How? By greater the emissions, greater will be the problem, greater will be the health impact, and it is the people who will be the major sufferers. In order to make sure that older vehicles are completely out of the system, and what we have is newer vehicles which has much better innovation and environmental standards. What the government of India is planning to do is to impose what is called as the green tax. So what will the government do? The government will impose the green tax on all the older vehicles. Now the question is, what is this green tax? When it comes to green tax, these are nothing but those type of environmental polluting goods or activities will be imposed with what is called as taxes. Let's say, for example, if there are older vehicles, they emit a lot of carbon emissions. So if there are these vehicles who are coming on the roads, they will be imposed with taxes. Or let's say, for example, in the present scenario, we are speaking about vehicles, or it can be other industries as well. Let's say the coal industry, or it can be any other industry as well, which is going to harm the environment and it will have an impact on the environmental problems. That is where the government will impose what is called as green tax, or it is also called as environmental tax. So what will happen? The minute these taxes are imposed on these owners or the industry, the same money is collected, it will be put in a particular account, and the money that is extracted from these people will be used for the mitigating causes of the pollution. So what is this green tax? This is nothing but for all those environmentally polluting goods and activities, the government imposes a tax. This tax money will be used for other mitigating strategies. In the present scenario, what is the government contemplating at? What is the government looking at? What is the government trying to bring when it comes to these older vehicles? When it comes to the government intention, the government currently has gone on to say that all the transport vehicles older than 8 years. So when we are speaking about transport vehicles, we are speaking about the commercial vehicles. What are these commercial vehicles? These are the ones which can be used for transferring the goods. It can be used for transferring people from one place to another place. So these are commercial in nature and not used for the private purposes. So when it comes to the transport vehicles, in case or the commercial vehicles which are older than 8 years, when they come for the renewal of the fitness certificate, they will be imposed with a particular green tax of the road tax imposed by the government. So in case there are commercial vehicles which go after 8 years, they have to come up with what is called as fitness certificate, and when they are going for this fitness certificate from the regional transport officers, they will be imposed with 20 to 25% of road tax. Now the question is, what is this fitness certificate? When it comes to the commercial vehicles, after 8 years, what they have to go is to the regional transport office. In the regional transport Office, they will check whether this particular vehicle is commercially viable. Is there any technical faults in it? Is there any mechanical issues in it? Is there any emission issues? And it checks at the overall working condition of this particular commercial vehicle. Once it testifies, it inspects whether this is in working condition, a certificate would be issued, and that certificate is what is called as the fitness certificate. This will be usually given by the regional transport office. So whenever after 8 years such commercial vehicles which go for the fitness certificate from that RTO, they would be imposed with what is called as 10 to 25% according to the recent notification which the government is planning to come up with. Apart from it, let's say for example, we also have our private vehicles as well. It can be our own cars as well. So at the time of renewal of registration certificate after 15 years, we may also be imposed with what is called as green tax. Why is all this being done? So that the emission standards are comparatively improved over a period of time, and older vehicles which does not follow these environmental standards will ultimately have to bear the brunt of it, so that they chuck away all these old vehicles and ultimately follow the new standards is what is the modus operandi of this particular notification which the government is planning to implement. Another important factor is we have to look at what is called as the differential taxes. So these differential taxes will also be charged depending on the type of fuel that is used in that vehicle and the type of vehicle engine that is present. Let's say for example, it can be petrol, so it will be a different taxation. If it is diesel, it can be a different taxation. And when it comes to the engine, it can be BS4, it can be BS6 as well, or it can also be the earlier ones like the BS3, so on and so forth. So depending on the type of vehicle, depending on the type of engine, differential taxes can also be applied by the government of India. But there are exceptions that are given under this particular notification. What are those exceptions? In case they are strong hybrids, they are electrical vehicles, and those running on alternative fuels like CNG, ethanol and LPG, such are exempted from this particular green tax which will be imposed by the central government. Apart from this, in case there are vehicles which are used in farming, let's say we have the tractors, are the harvesters or the tillers, such vehicles will also be exempted from this particular taxation. The other measures that the government is planning to take is in case there are vehicles that are owned by the government department and the public sector units of the government which are above 15 years on age, such will also be scrapped by the government of India as well. So the government in this particular case is trying to make sure that it is pacifying the people, encouraging them so that they move away from the older vehicles, enter into the fold of new vehicles, ultimately to curb the menace of these environmental impact. Now what we have to understand is with respect to the advantages when it comes to this particular program of imposing green tax. The minute this is imposed by the government of India, what are the possible benefits when it comes to the people? First is with respect to the automobile industry and the related business. How will it help the automobile industry? As we all know, there is crunch or there is limited scopes because of the COVID-19 issue. People are not buying private vehicles as well. Commercial activities were not that good when it comes to the pandemic time as well. So what will now happen, because the government has come up with such a rule, people might be incentivized to come up and bring up new types of vehicles. So what will be boosted is the automobile industry, where new commercial vehicles will be bought by the people, new private vehicles will be bought by the people, and ultimately this will be where the automobile sales with respect to the vehicles will also improve as well. And at the same time, related business will also improve. Let's say the steel industry or the iron industry, or for example the rubber industry, all these industries will also work as well. With respect to the tires, what we need is the rubber. With respect to the cars, what we need is these steel industry. And with respect to the technology boost, the other related industries will also get a boost. So the first advantage is for the automobile industry and the related businesses. The second advantage is with respect to the stricter emissions and fuel efficiency standards. What are these stricter emissions? As we have discussed initially, the number of companies which are improvising on their engines are improving. We have what is called as BS4, and now what we will have is BS6 in engines. So when we have BS6 these engines, the amount of emissions, the carbon emissions that which have been released by these vehicles will comparatively drop, and they would be meeting the stricter emissions. And at the same time, the fuel efficiency standards will also improvise. What do we mean by fuel efficiency standards? Let's say, for example, a car from a particular company for a liter of petrol might give a mileage of about 20 kilometer for a single liter. It might be improvised to about 25, let's say, and this is what we call as fuel efficiency standard. For 1 liter of fuel, it can be petrol or diesel, what is the mileage that this particular vehicle gives. So this will also mean that the fuel efficiency standards will also improve over a period of time. And at the same time, what we also have to remember, that these engines or these vehicles also have much advanced level of safety as well. It can be in terms of technology, it can be in terms of braking system, it can be in terms of safety like airbags, so on and so forth. So the advanced vehicles also include all these aspects which were not present under the older system. The third advantage is with respect to corporate average fuel economy. So what is this corporate average fuel economy? In 2016, India notified all these standards to boost the efficiency. What is it all about? Basically, it aims at lowering the fuel consumption. That is what is about fuel efficiency standards, and at the same time, it also wants to lower the carbon emissions, meeting the standards of emissions as well. That is what is called as the corporate average fuel economy. And when we look into the statistics, commercial vehicles make up literally 5% of the vehicle fleet, but they contribute nearly 75% or 60 to 7% when it comes to the vehicular population. If we are able to push out the older vehicles and come up with newer vehicles, the environmental pollution can also be curbed as well. Now, the interesting question with respect to its execution is, will we be able to meet all these standards? That is where the whole dilemma of this particular question is. How is that we would have a problem? That is because way back in 2015, the Transport Ministry again came up with a similar notification. Back then, they also incentivized the people as well. Let's say, for example, if you are a private owner, if you are having a vehicles, the government did come up with a notification where it said that in case you're planning to give away your older vehicle, there would also be what is called as the passenger vehicle discount as well. Let's say, for example, for the cars, there will be about 50,000 or 30,000. These were the incentives given by the government back then. Or let's say, for example, if it is the commercial vehicle, it was estimated to be about 1.5 lakh. So all these incentives and discounts were tried by the government in 2015 as a notification, but this was not successful implementation. But now in the present scenario, there is no incentivization, there is no discounts that are offered. Instead, there is an aggressive push by taxation. So will it work or not is what we have to wait and watch. So in case we have to bring a greater end to this particular misery, what the government intends or what the government should be doing is making sure that financial options such as loans and grants at a very less interest rate will have to be provided by the government. The people should be asked, encouraged to give away their older vehicles. They should be given enough information, education about it, how it can be detrimental to the environment and how indirectly it harms the people's health as well. So all this will have to be projected by the government. In case it is able to project these, people will automatically take up all these issues, and until and unless we are not able to do it, people will hold back to their old vehicles is the first key argument. The second is we need to give stimulus to the bus companies as well. The more the stimulus, the more the buses in the public arena, people will be opting for the public transport. The reason why people also take up the private transport is because of the endpoint connectivity. Let's say, for example, you have to travel from a destination A to the destination B, but from their houses to this destination A, it will be a long walk and there will not be a connectivity between, let's say, B to another location C. So the problem is public transport as of now is not able to meet to the demands as well. So what we require is more public transport that the government will have to come up with, and at the same time they have to give incentives to the manufacturing companies so that all these bus companies are incentivized and these buses are present in the public forum. And the third is with respect to the auto rickshaws as well. That is where we have to give them more considerable low interest loans, particularly to move to the electric vehicles. As of now, they might be using other fuels like diesel or petrol, but in few cases they might also be using gas as well. If we give them the incentive and a booster, they will also shift to the electric auto rickshaws as well, for which what they require is loans. These loans will have to be provided at a very less rate by the government. If we are able to contribute to all these factors, what we will see is increased use of the modern vehicles and the drop in the older vehicles is what this article all about. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Google exit threat. What is the context? We have the Australian government. It has asked the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission to come up with a draft code of conduct for all the digital giants like Google and Facebook. Now, the first question is, what is this Australian Competition and Consumer Commission? Its mandate is similar to that of the Competition Commission of India. In India, we have the Competition Commission of India. What does it do? It takes care of the consumers. Why? Because when consumers are given different products, they are in a presence of picking what they want. So there is competition that is established in the market, and at the same time it also has to make sure that companies do not have the market dominance when it comes to the market scenario. So this whole regulation when it comes to India is conducted by the Competition Commission of India, but when it comes to Australia, they have what is called as the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. So basically this will monitor the industry regulation, price monitoring, and prevent illegal anti-competitive behavior. Now what we have to understand is, since the government had asked this particular authority to form a new code of conduct for all the digital giants, they have come up with what is called as News Media Bargaining Code. Now the question is, what is this News Media Bargaining Code? Let me first explain what this concept or issue is all about. We have different newspaper. In India, we might have Indian Express, we might have the Hindu, or let's say for example we might have Times of India. Likewise, there are number of newspaper outlets when it comes to Australia. It can be News Corp or it can be ABC. So what exactly happens is, all these people invest a lot of energy, they gather information, they do a lot of check-in as well, and ultimately they do come up with their articles which has statistics as well as relevant information. But what does Google do? Google provides what is called a snippet. What is the snippet? This is a snippet as shown in the picture. So the minute you go to news, you want to read something, you give it in Google. So what does Google do? It provides what is called as the snippets. So Google with its snippets will give enough information for the user, which ultimately means that the Google's information is enough for the user to get an overview of what that issue is all about. So in this particular backdrop, ideally those people who want to read the particular information will not click on this particular link, but instead these snippets or this information showed by Google will be enough for them to get an outer view of that particular information. So what will happen? They would not hit this particular link, and the minute they do not hit or go to their official website, let's say for example, if I click this particular information, I might go to the Guardian website. So the minute I go to the Guardian website, what I'll be projected with is ads. So these ads will go to the Guardian as a particular company. So in this particular case, if they don't click this particular link, it is a revenue loss for that particular company. So what is this code saying? In the present scenario, what the code is trying to say is that because Google is providing these snippets and Facebook is also hosting what is called a links of that particular company or that particular website, they are able to generate the revenue, they are able to get the ads, they have boosted your overall revenue and profits, but ultimately who is it leading to losses? It is losses for all these companies. Why? Because these companies are not generating enough revenue and ads, and as a result what the new code proposes is, in case I as a person or any other person who's in Australia who might be present, if he is hosting a particular link on Facebook, Facebook will have to pay this particular company or this newspaper, or if Google is providing this particular snippet as shown in the picture, Google will have to pay that particular company or that newspaper. So what it says is that the publishers, that is the newspaper outlet or news organization, directly negotiate with Facebook individually as a single company. Let's say News Corporation is one single news company. This news company will individually speak to Google, or it will individually speak to Facebook, enter into a contract and an agreement such that Google will pay an amount to this particular company, or it can also be voiced collectively as well. Let's say for example, News Corporation comes into picture, or there is ABC, which is a company, which is another public company. So all these news corporations will jointly come together and they enter into a consensus, and that is given to Google or Facebook. So Google or Facebook, because they have hosted a particular article on their website, on their search engine, it means that they are generating revenue, but it is ultimately not going to the newspapers, so they have to pay, is what is this news media bargaining code. And ultimately the problem is here that Google is saying that is how the search engine works. What Google is currently saying is all these snippets are basically giving just the information. We are not actually plagiarizing the content. We are not giving you all the information as well. Ultimately, it is for the user to decide. So the user, in case he wants to select a particular newspaper, he will click that particular link and ultimately he would land up on that particular page as well. So we are not doing anything, says Google. And apart from that, what these codes also define is that the data that is collected by Google on users when those users interact with the news content will also have to be provided, says this particular code. Apart from that, Google or Facebook will also have what is called as algorithms. What are these algorithms? Let's say for example there are coding, then there is changes that Google wants to intend to bring, or let's say for example Facebook wants to intends to bring. So when Google or Facebook is planning to bring an internal change in their architecture with their programming, in the way that they actually present their search engine or the Facebook programming, in such a case they also will have to give a notice period of 14 days informing the same to a particular news provider, and at the same time they also have to notify the same to the news corporations as well. So the question that they are now asking is, why should we give this information, which is a policy which is internal to a particular company, to that particular company or the news corporation? Ideally, all the traffic data that we are supposed to give have been exchanged already, so we cannot give the algorithm change, or this particular issue cannot be taken up easily, says Google or Facebook. Another important factor is with respect to arbitration as well. What is this arbitration? As we initially discussed, let's say there is Google and there is News Corporation. They either can discuss individually or they can collectively discuss as well. So they have to discuss about what is the money that Google is paying to this News Corporation. In case there is no settlement, in case they have not entered into an agreement, they enter what is called as the arbitration. This is where the government also pictures in. So if the government has come up with a particular order, and if they are not able to release or understand this particular order and make a consensus to it, that is when penalty will also be imposed on Facebook or on Google. This is where Google once again says that it is violating some of the important factors when it comes to the internet search engine. And as a result of all these issues that we have just discussed, Google is saying that in case this code, which is currently in the draft format, if it is being implemented by the Australian government, it will ultimately mean that Google search engine will not be present in Australia, and we would not be working in your country, and we would move outside the country. Facebook has also threatened that all its users will not be able to share any of the content from the Australian users on the Facebook application, which means both these digital companies have threatened the government of Australia. So basically, what these companies are saying is that paying usage for these snippets and links as provided in the code is completely wrong, and an unfair and unprecedented arbitration process has also been established, which is once again unfair, says both these companies. Similar examples when it had happened in some other countries, Google have taken extreme steps of withdrawing from that particular country. Let's say, for example, back in the year 2010, where there was excessive monitoring surveillance by the Chinese government, Google shut down its Chinese search engine back in the year 2010. Google shut its news services in Spain as well, but recently in France, they have also entered into agreements with number of newspaper outlets. Now the question is, why is that it was able to enter into a consensus with France newspaper outlets, but it is not able to do the same when it comes to Australia? That is because when it comes to France, there was no imposition from the government of France. Google must negotiate directly with the publishers. They had a consensus, and this consensus was on the basis of general discussion, publication volume, and the audience size of that particular newspaper. So there was no government involvement here, but instead the publisher and that particular company, that is Google, will directly have any negotiations. But here what we have is an arbitration, what we have is a penalty in Australia, which is against the established principles of Google. And at the same time, when you go back to France, they were not asking for the internal intricacies of how Google as a company works. They are not asking for the algorithm change to be notified to that news corporation, but that is being asked in Australia. And as a result, Google in this particular case has threatened that they will be moving out of Australia in case this code does come into implementation. Now the question is, in case, let's assume that Google is completely out of Australia and Australians do not have this Google search engine, what are the possible options? The possible options would be Microsoft's Bing, Yahoo, privacy focused one, and that happens to be DuckDuckGo. But what we also have to remember is that as of now, Google search engine tops the first ranking. So Google has about 90 to 95% of the search engine market when it comes to Australia, and similar in the rest of the world as well. But what we also have to remember is, in case it is gone, in case it is taken away from Australia, does it mean that they have no options? They have all these options, but only thing that we have to remember is that Google is not just a search engine. Google has Gmail as well. Google also has YouTube as well, and YouTube also has its own shares of searches as well. All this will be integrated when it comes to the Google search engine. That might not be the same with respect to the Microsoft Bing, or with respect to the Yahoo, or with respect to the DuckDuckGo as well. When we are using Gmail, our searches will be kept a check by Google, and when we use the navigation, it will again keep a check with respect to it. And when we use what is called as YouTube, all this are integrated, so the search results are much better when it comes to Google. And at the same time, in case you're accessing Microsoft Bing or Yahoo, you would be able to get the information, but problem is the old historical data when it comes to a particular issue might not surface in search engines, are some of the issues. Now what we have to understand is a linkage to the Indian circumstances and the global picture. First, let us discuss about the Indian picture. When it comes to India, we have number of issues that are surfacing with the global giants as well. Let's take the example of Google. Google had issues with Paytm. That is when Paytm said that they'll be opening what is called as the mini application store as well. There is also a picture and a particular case that is filed in the Competition Commission of India, where there are number of companies and startup who have filed cases against Google. Why? Because it is misusing its dominance in the market. This is with respect to Google. And with respect to Facebook, we did recently discuss about the WhatsApp controversy as well. So all that these giants are able to do is use their market share, market capture, and misuse their position, capturing the major dominance when it comes to the market. So what we also require is certain laws, data protection laws, as we have in the European Union. And when it comes to France, again there were tussles within Facebook and Google as well. The same is with multiple other countries and with the European Union. So this might not be restricted to the boundaries of Australia, but it is applicable across continents in India and also across different countries as well. In case there is a particular precedent that which is said, there is consensus, negotiations and deliberations between the Australian government and the Google, and if similar precedent can be taken up by India or by any other countries world over, we will have what is called as market dominance, completely controlled by the governments. Why? Because as we have seen, these companies have huge amount of money and they are also able to dictate terms to a particular country and its government, and also bringing changes when it comes to how democracy functions. One such example is the Cambridge Analytica issue. If we are able to keep a check in all these aspects, we would be able to bring these companies to the doors of the parliament of that particular country. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says China is still largest source of critical imports for India. What is this article currently speaking about? It is speaking in terms of economy and it is speaking about critical imports. What is it in terms of economy? When it comes to India and China's economy, what we currently have is called as the trade deficit. What is this trade deficit? When it comes to imports from China, it is comparatively more, but when it comes to exports from India to China, it is comparatively less, and as a result, it is in favor of China when it comes to economy, and what we have is a tilt towards China, leading to what is called as trade deficit. The second aspect is about critical imports. What are these critical imports? Let's say, for example, for us to manufacture a particular mobile or for us to manufacture a particular laptop, what we require is certain tools, what we require is certain equipment, and what we require is certain minerals as well. These minerals, these equipments are imported from China, and at the same time there are also pharmaceutical chemicals as well. Let's say, for example, the active pharmaceuticals, these are again imported from China as well. In case these imports does not happen from China, India could be under greater loss because the ultimate final product will not come into the market. So this article currently goes on to say that mobile phone components that we require, nearly 85% comes from China, and at the same time, when it comes to the pharmaceutical ingredients, when it comes to the active pharmaceutical ingredients, let's say for the production of penicillin, we are still depending too much on China, says this article. In order to overcome this issue, what we have to follow is called as the multi-pronged approach. So what is this multi-pronged approach? This is to make sure that we are diversifying our resources. In order to make sure that we diversify, the government of India has come up and taken three important measures. What are these three important measures? One is the production linked incentive scheme. What is this production linked incentive scheme? Basically, in case there are companies, let's say Apple or any other company, they are establishing their manufacturing bases in India, a prescribed base year is given by the government of India, and after this particular base year is prescribed by the government, in case there are standards that are met, in case the production of a particular product is over this baseline year, that is when incentives will be provided to that particular company. Let's say the base year is 2020. Let's say hypothetically there are about 1000 products of iPhones that are manufactured. So this will be taken as a benchmark. Now in 2021, if it is above 1000 or whatever is the prescribed number, in case they are able to meet this particular benchmark, they would be provided with an incentive. So similar incentives are given to the capital groups, they are given to the pharmaceuticals, technology products, telecom and networking products, high efficiency solar PV modules, and advanced battery cells as well. In case all these companies from China who are operating in China, these happen to be multinational companies, are moving from China to India, they would be provided with production linked incentives. Apart from this, the Indian mission or the Indian embassy is constantly in talks with countries as well as companies as well. Why? They want all these companies and countries to move from China. As an alternative, they can look at India is one of the other approach. We have also entered into number of free trade agreements as well. One such example that we can speak of is South Korea. What has happened? Previously, we were importing a lot of steel from China, but now we have reduced our dependence from China. How? That is by using the free trade agreement with South Korea. So what we have to effectively make use of is the free trade agreements with number of countries so that we do not depend on a single country like China. Instead, diversify our resources. So we have to import from Japan, we have to import from Australia, we have to import from any other countries as well. So solely focusing on China might be a major problem. That is what this article currently focuses. So diversifying and taking a multi-pronged approach is the need of the hour, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says government plans law to ban Bitcoin, set up official digital currency. What is this article all about? We have number of digital currencies which is under the control of no one. One such example is the Bitcoin. So what is the government trying to do? It is trying to outlaw the usage of this Bitcoin and trying to bring what is called as the official digital currency, which will be regulated by the central bank, which is the Reserve Bank of India. So the Bitcoins or anyone which is similar to it can be completely outlawed. This should not be used by the financial institutions or individuals in India, and in case they want to use a digital currency, they have to only use that which has been introduced by a central legislation which is controlled by the Reserve Bank of India, says this particular proposal. We do not know how it will be implemented, we do not know who will be implementing it, we do not know what will be the provisions with respect to this particular legislation. Once this particular legislation is out in a public forum or a notification is issued by the government, we will have an elaborate analysis. Now the question is, were there similar steps taken in the past? When we go back to the year 2018, RBI had introduced the financial institutions to break off all ties with individuals or businesses dealing in virtual currency. There was a lot of hue and cry as well. Why? Because the Indian startups had already started expanding on the similar levels of the Bitcoins as well. New startups had also come up. People are also started transacting with Bitcoins as well. Why? Because the price of Bitcoin started shooting up as well. And at this same time, people also started mining Bitcoins as well. This had become a meaningful profitable exercise for them, and as a result many people approached the Supreme Court of India. In 2020, the Supreme Court allowed banks to handle the cryptocurrency transactions from the exchanges and trades as well. Now what we have to wait and watch whether the government will look into all these provisions, comes up with the legislation, or what will be the provisions of this particular legislation. Since we have no idea about it, once we have this particular legislation, we will take it up in an elaborate way. But the main intention of the government to come up with such a legislation basically is to make sure that there are no frauds like in Bitcoin or there are other currencies. Whenever there is a currency which is not under the control of the government or the central bank, this can result in increasing cases of terror financing, or it can lead to money laundering as well, and people can also be cheated in this particular issue. In order to overcome this issue, that is why the government is planning to come up with a law. Now let's look into the next article. This article says what caused the tilt to the Saturn's rotation axis. In this article, we have to remember for the fact few important factors when it comes to Saturn and why there has been a tilt. There was a research that was conducted by the CNRS and Sorbonne University. According to this particular research, Saturn's tilt may in fact be caused by its moons, says this particular research. Apart from this, it goes on to say that the tilt of the Saturn's rotation axis is caused by the migration of its satellites and especially by that of its largest moon, which happens to be Titan. So kindly remember, from the preliminary examination point of view, the largest moon when it comes to Saturn happens to be Titan. But when it comes to the entire our solar system, it happens to be the Jupiter's Ganymede. Remember, when it comes to Saturn, it is Titan, but when it comes to the entire solar system, it is Jupiter's Ganymede. Apart from this, we also have to remember some important factual data when it comes to Saturn. Saturn happens to be the sixth planet from the Sun and second largest planet in our solar system. Saturn has recently overtaken Jupiter as the planet with the most number of moons according to the US researchers. So what is this update? They have identified or discovered 20 new moons where this have been reflecting in the numbers with respect to the Saturn. So as of now, there are about 53 confirmed moons with an additional 20 odd moons. The number goes up to 82, and as of now, Jupiter has 79 moons. So what is it right now? Saturn has the more number of moons in comparison to Jupiter, but the largest of all is the Jupiter's Ganymede. Kindly remember this fact, which can be very important from your preliminary examination. When it comes to the discovery of these moons, there are about 20 odd moons. In that, there is something called as prograde motion. So what is this prograde group or the prograde motion? Let's say, for example, there is a specific direction in which the Saturn rotates. In case there are moons or its satellite which rotate in the same direction as that of the Saturn, that is what is called as the prograde group. But there is the direction of Saturn in one particular direction, but if there are moons which work in the opposite direction to that of the Saturn, that is what is called as the retrograde motion. So if it is in the same direction of that of the Saturn, it is called as the prograde, and if it is in the opposite direction, it is called as the retrograde group or the retrograde motion. Kindly remember, this can be very important from your preliminary examination. There can also be questions with respect to the machines as well. Let's say, for example, the Pioneer 11 or the Voyager 1 and 2, and recently we also have the Cassini mission, which is studying about the aspects of pattern. Now I have an important question for you. Saturn is the only planet with rings. Is this a correct statement or this is an incorrect statement? Drop your answers on the comment section. In case you feel there are other planets as well, do name which are the other planets that are present in the solar system with the rings. In case there are no planets with the rings apart from Saturn, do put the same thing on the comment section as well. So this is a small assignment from our side to you, so put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from the preliminary examination point of view. It makes a mention of what is called as the Ekamra Kshetra. So what is this Ekamra Kshetra? Basically, this is nothing but the temple city of Bhubaneswar. Why is it called so? That is because this particular temple city of Bhubaneswar is known for its ancient sandstone temples, heritage ponds, water tanks, and number of monuments which have been present in this particular place for nearly thousands of years, and as a result, this is called as the Ekambara Kshetra. So this Ekambara Kshetra is nothing but the temple city of Bhubaneswar. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. So this is basically only from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. What do you understand by green tax? Will the government proposal help to achieve the clean air objective? Critically evaluate. Next question. The issues being debated in Australia between the government and technological giants like Google and Facebook could have broader implications for the regulation of the digital economy in India and elsewhere in the long term. Discuss. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and also come up with some positive feedback. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.